Welcome to the FangledCast, brought to you by Fangled Technologies, where we help you convert every person your company touches into a voracious advocate for your brand. Hello and welcome back to the FangledCast. Today I'm with Jeroen Corthout from Belgium. And I picked him for this topic, and we've been talking about it because I really want to dig into CRM. And it's become such a maligned sort of word. It's such a confusing thing. People don't really know what they're for. And the conversations always end up with the big incumbent. And everybody thinks if you're going to go CRM, you have to go there. Well, Jeroen is a guy who did extensive research and has worked and created a different type of CRM. And through that process and conversing with him about it over the last couple of days that we've had conversations, I think he's got some interesting insights. So Jeroen, tell us a little bit about who you are and your background in CRM.
Yeah, very briefly, I'm a CEO and co-founder of Salesflare. And Salesflare is a small and medium-sized business CRM, specifically actually for businesses who sell B2B. We like to keep things simple, and if you focus a bit more, that really helps to deliver simplicity. And what else can I say? It's very popular with agencies, a lot of marketing agencies, consultancies, and all that. And tech companies. A lot of those are startups, but also mid-sized companies. Like we have a few slightly larger telcos on it, and
Gotcha.
etc.
Gotcha. Let's go back to the beginning of what, in your opinion, what is a CRM, and what can it do for a company?
Yeah, by definition, a CRM is a customer relationship management system, right? So it's a system in which you manage customer relationships. Now, if you look at most companies in their essence, they do two things. One, they have a product or build a product, create a product, or deliver services, whatever. There's some value creation going on. And secondly, this value creation needs to reach the market. So there's a sales aspect to it as well. And many companies, most companies, if they're B2B, they do that through sales. So same thing in our company, basically. Part of the company builds stuff, another part of the company sells that, delivers it to customers, delivers the service and all that. So it's in that second part that the CRM comes in. If you would ask most of our customers, they would say, well, the CRM for us is to follow up our leads and our customers. Mm-hmm. It's not more complex than that for the end user. If you, of course, then go levels up and you ask their manager, what is it about? Then it starts being about other stuff as well. It starts being about creating transparency, creating accountability, filling in for people who aren't there, picking up when people leave. It's about collaborating a bit better in the company, and it's about forecasting sales. You know, it becomes more. But in its essence, for people, and this is very important because these people are often ignored, the end user, it's really about managing a sort of communication flow. It's really about managing that relationship with the customer.
Yeah, you know, when you go back in time, and I'm old enough that I worked in the days before CRM was even a concept. So it was salespeople had boxes with cards that they kept there, or they had what was called a Rolodex. It's funny, I used that word the other day and someone, what the hell is that? It was a company that made a way of keeping cards in order for keeping track of customers. And people had notebooks and they had agendas, and everybody had something different. And there were lots of challenges with that, just in terms of people, you know, staying ahead of it. So sort of the next phase was being able to put all of those customers into a computer, into lists. And we still weren't at the CRM phase. We were at the, how do we keep track of our address book? So when we get into the more technical part of this going forward, where with automation and all of these things that I'm not convinced every company needs, let's kind of go back to, in current CRM model, which is the software that helps salespeople do better. Let's kind of go department to department and talk about what do they get out of it. For example, if I'm a sales manager, why would I want to have a CRM for my sales team? What do I get out of it?
For salespeople, it's really about managing the customer relationships, right? It goes beyond an address book. A lot of companies think like, oh, let's get a CRM, and then we'll basically have an address book of all the companies and contacts we're in touch with, and we share that in one place. That's that's maybe the simplest step, of course, you can take.
Sure,
It's better than all having your contacts in your separate Gmail or Outlook accounts. It's a step up, but I don't think that's what CRM is about, because CRM again is about relationships. And what are relationships? It's mainly the communication that is going on that defines a relationship. And I believe personally that the address book level data is secondary to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is towards really the sales team. So it's really the essence is mapping communication flows, mapping sort of that address book level data, and it goes beyond what are contact details. It's also what type of company is this? What do they do? How large are they? Any information that is handy for you as a person and as a team to be able to deliver better service, sales follow up to that client, to deliver better a fit of offering, and segment people so that you can have different offerings for different segments in your customer base. That's all valid information.
Gotcha. So if I'm a sales manager and my team is using the CRM properly, I should be able to open up that customer and have enough information to get a feel for who they are, what they do, how they're different than others in their market segment, what are their behaviors, who are the key players that we deal with, all of the sort of decision-making information, as well as if it's integrated with the main software, should I also know about their order patterns and all of that kind of stuff within the CRM?
It depends how important that is to serve a customer better. If this is information that you need to be able to know how to handle them, yes. If you don't need that information, no. It's all dependent on obviously your specific use case, but generally I would say probably.
And the reason I ask about it is, the first CRM I was ever on was a company, I don't even know if they're still in existence. And the management of the company put it in place, and it was cleverly known by the staff as our new electronic babysitter. And the whole purpose of that CRM, according to the management of the company, was, well, this is going to help you guys sell better. And what we knew what it was they wanted to see what we were doing, when we were doing it, keeping track of us hour by hour, and creating a lot more work for us. It was a nightmare.
Yeah. And that's actually the imbalance in most companies. Like CRMs are sold as something that is going to help you sell, but then very quickly salespeople understand that it's not. I mean, they just look at it and they're like, okay, this doesn't help me. First of all, it doesn't just not help them. They also need to put in a whole lot of work. So there's lots of data inputs required. People tell them, fill it out. It's going to help you sell. But this data input is so much work. And the actual help in their sales process is so little that there's already a total imbalance into if you do a lot of stuff, you get nothing in return, you're not going to keep doing it, right? Plus, then on top of that, their managers are looking and they're saying, oh, you're doing this, you shouldn't do that, or no, you've done well enough. Now we take your clients and put someone else on that. There's all kinds of effects that make it even less interesting for you as a salesperson. Because, it's not interesting plus other stuff on top. If you can make it interesting and then do the other stuff on top, then maybe salespeople use it. And actually, that's where it all fails, because if the end users, the salespeople, don't fill out the data, there's no data, and any use you want to get out of a CRM fails. And we didn't get into all the different uses yet.
Yeah.
But none of them work if the data isn't there in the first place.
Sure. Yeah, we will get into some of the uses. I'm just trying to sort of build that idea of for people that are watching the show, what is the real benefit to the different people involved? My opinion, the sales manager's biggest benefit is it gives them so much more fuel to be able to coach and grow a salesperson.
Definitely.
Rather than having, sales meetings before a CRM were, so what did you do this week?
Mm-hmm.
Sales manager conversations with employees after CRM is, I went through the data and I'm curious about this client and this piece of business and this proposal. I'm looking at your sales funnel in this, and I'm noticing you're nowhere near closing what you need to get to your goals this month, and you're out prospecting. There's so many things ready to close. Why aren't you? So it becomes a coaching tool and a benefit if it's implemented properly and the salesperson's doing their job. And then kind of jump over to the sales guy. We know why they don't want it, because it's extra work sometimes and all of those things. But why should a salesperson? What's in it for the salesperson? If a well implemented CRM, what will it do for them that they couldn't do without it?
It's basically their second brain, first of all, and a reminder system. Mm-hmm. If you are managing more than, let's say, 5 to 10 clients, then it becomes very hard to do just based on memory, and you need some sort of system. If the CRM does not fulfill that purpose, good salespeople will start building a system next to the CRM. And that's incredibly annoying for the company, because everybody has their own system, they're not connected, and it's one huge chaos. Ideally, the CRM serves that purpose. It makes them remember who they're in contact with at a certain company, what their details are, when they were last in touch, that they sent an email on that date and had a meeting then and placed a call, and then they still need to follow up. The customer said follow up in a week. It's in the system, follow up in a week. Okay, all this kind of stuff. But most implementations, never fulfill that purpose for all kinds of reasons. If it's not used, then it immediately fails. I honestly, of all the salespeople that are targeting me on a regular basis, I know of only one person who does it properly, and she really has. Like, she calls me and she says, "Oh, you said then, call me back." Well, I'm here. Last time we discussed that. Where are you on these things?
Yep.
And goes with me through things. She notes some stuff from this conversation and then says, "When would it be convenient for you to talk again?" And picks it up again. And that's how everybody should be able to do it.
Yeah, I remember a case when I became a fan. It was the time that I went from this thing's a ridiculous babysitter, moved on to another company. We were using the CRM properly, and it was still difficult to use because the wrong people had put it together. When the IT department builds your CRM instead of engaging the salespeople, it's ridiculous. But I had a huge proposal. It was a very large piece of business, and I had sent out a proposal that I was supposed to follow up on within 2 weeks, and then I had to travel internationally. I was on the road, came back, was exhausted, came in the office, pulled up the CRM, and there was on my dashboard, "You're 2 days late following up on this." I picked up the phone and called. "Oh, so glad that you called. We tried to reach you." Of course, I never got the message. "And we have one last question because we have to make the decision today."
Yeah.
And it ended up being the largest sale I made that year. And had the CRM not kicked me right where it hurt to get me to do my job, because I had forgotten, I never would have made my number that year, because that was what put me over the top. So
definitely,
yeah, it was. I mean, that's the kind of accomplishment or the kind of success story you want. But at the same time, it was still the big incumbent, and there was so much work involved. Any time that you put data in was a 10-minute task of clicking boxes and writing. And we knew that 90% of the information we put in was never going to be seen by anybody. And it was because the IT department wanted it for the database, and the financial people wanted us doing their job, and all of these other departments that had gotten involved in turning the salespeople into clerks. So how do we avoid that when we want to have a functioning CRM, but we don't want our salespeople doing all of that when they should be out selling?
Yeah, I think that's indeed the most made mistake. The main purpose when you roll out a CRM is first that your salespeople use it, and then afterwards that they keep using it.
Yeah.
I think there's a few simple guidelines. First of all, focus on the goal that your sales team has with using it. Depending on what they want to achieve with it and what kind of company you are, of the 650 something CRMs that are in the market,
Yep.
you can already narrow down quite a bit as to what you're going to choose. Then involve your sales team in the decision. Make sure that it's not just you top down imposing something. Make them choose with you. First of all, you'll choose better. Secondly, you'll have more buy-in if you work together with them rather than just saying, okay, we're gonna use this, do it. Then third, to make them use it well, choose something that is understandable. That's I think a no-brainer. If they don't get it, they won't use it and it will fall apart. Make sure then that they get to understand everything in it. So invest a bit in proper training, but also go slightly further than that. It's not just about them understanding how the software works. It's also understanding how you're going to use it as a team. So it doesn't have to be much, but it's good to have some guidelines like, okay, as a team, we're going to do things like this and that in the CRM. I mean, CRMs allow a lot of ways of using them. Mm-hmm. So you as a team need to make some decisions. It's not just like, let's get this CRM. Let's say, okay, if we do this, we're going to do it at that point and we're going to fill it out like that.
Yeah.
And if you take these things together, then at least you're on your way to have salespeople use it.
Yeah, you know, we do a lot of CRM implementation with clients over the years. And, you know, most of them have already decided on the incumbent because they know the name. And, yeah. And we won't take on a project anymore where, unless they've already bought the licenses, but we won't take on a project anymore where we don't do a study in terms of, number one, at the core, what do you want to get out of this CRM? What do you want it to do for your business? That's number one. Number two then is who all is going to be involved in the implementation of it, and what departments do you want it to affect? Because there are companies that really don't need it to go through enterprise wide. But once we can build a strategy around what the CRM is going to do for them, because the CRM is a tool towards their core strategy, then we encourage them to seek out at least 3 other companies besides the incumbent to look at the total cost of ownership, the functionality. It's kind of like, you know, people that go out and they buy the car and they want the one that has all of the features they're never going to use, or they want a car that really meets their need and gives them the comfort and safety. So what besides that, what other recommendations should we be giving our clients as they start looking for a CRM for their company?
No, I think most of these things make sense, except for, I'm personally always a fan to when you have one core thing you need to achieve, then it's good to make sure that you meet that. And the core thing here to achieve is that the sales team uses it, right?
Right.
You can involve other departments, that makes sense. But if these departments get too much of a voice, then the problem is going to be that some of the things are going to shift in their direction. Yep. And it will become more cumbersome for the sales team. And if it reaches a certain level, mm-hmm. then the sales team will disengage.
Yeah, well, let me back up what I was saying then, because I think maybe I misspoke. For example, mm-hmm. when you talk to production and finance, what aren't they getting from the sales team that they need for say, example, forecasting for future and growth? So how can we no longer burden the salespeople from spending 3 days in-house doing weird forecasting stuff when mm-hmm. if they have a box to click or the data is gathered in a way that the CRM can do it for them? Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean. In terms, what are all the goals of the company? You may not meet all of the goals, but it's the same. The marketing team is always wanting information to the guy who knows the customer the best.
Yeah.
And in companies that don't have a well-functioning CRM, the marketing team's constantly bugging the sales guys.
Yeah.
What would happen if you found a CRM that can gather enough information from the way that the notes are made in the CRM, so the marketing team can leave the sales team alone and still benefit from their tribal knowledge? So that's what I'm talking about.
There's just a balance. Like the finance team can say, okay, we don't have proper forecasts right now, so we would like you to fill out this and this and this and this and this. Like, we need to have exactly which units of what we're going to sell and stuff. Mm-hmm. If it gets to a certain point that this becomes too complicated, they're going to go from a situation in which they maybe have absolutely nothing to a situation where they have nothing as well, because they just overshot what they wanted.
Yeah.
And often a very basic improvement is already going from having no information forecast wise, or really bad information, to having most of the information. It's just when you give the finance or the operations guys a bit too much importance there, they will pull it to such a point that the sales team is also going to say, we're still not going to do this.
Absolutely. That's why I think there's ways to embed things that don't burden the salespeople. But first, if you have to understand all of the pains and issues that a company has, and then you can make those choices, which CRM do I need that I can easily do that without burdening the sales team? Because at the end of the day, I've run many a sales team. And one of the most important things that you can do as a sales manager is eliminate everything from their day that isn't involved in selling.
Definitely.
That's what they're supposed to be doing. You know, some of the worst sales teams I've ever seen were spending 30% of their time, 40% of their time administratively, and 60% actually being salespeople. It's a horrible waste of resources.
Yeah. It's not just a waste of time. Some salespeople might start hiding away in it.
Yep.
They start spending their time on admin and don't even call the customers anymore.
And
it's very, very dangerous.
And let's face it, if the CRM's not built properly, what you're asking the salespeople to do, not directly, is to game you, and they play the game. It's, you know, your pipe, according to the CRM, the pipeline looks a little bleak. So they have a deal that could be $100,000 deal. They put 120. They get that pipeline filled to get the sales manager off their back. And then all of a sudden, hey, you guys aren't closing, and they've got this fake pipeline that they've got to deal with. So all of those factors have to come into play. Hey, we're running short on the time envelope. Is there anything I didn't ask you about CRMs that I should have that you want to talk about real quick before we wrap up?
No, I think I want to take one step back, because some people might think, okay, what these guys have been talking about is so logical. I mean, everybody does that, right? They choose stuff well. To maybe frame it a bit, I think 80-90% of people, when they look for a CRM, either takes the top brand name in their head, or just types CRM into Google without thinking more about their decision than that. Then just clicks on some stuff, says which ones are top ranked. But most people don't even think about what is going to be the use case. Most people don't think about including the sales team in the decision. And they're very, very, very basic steps. So if anything, start there, I would say.
Yeah. You know, of all the things that we talked about, I think that's the most important. So I hope people listen all the way to the end, because at the end of the day, you know, you can go out there and click and find 100 different alternatives. And I've seen it when I've done research for bringing CRMs in. And there are a lot of them out there that are so niche specific, and even in those niches don't do the job that we're talking about. So really think about, for me, and anytime we bring an application, any kind of tool that's brought to help build, you know, out from a strategy, is what do each person in this, what are they going to benefit from it? What's in it for them? And does it meet the strategy of the organization? So that's really good stuff. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. I really appreciate. We'll put your contact information so folks can reach out and find you on LinkedIn, and we'll put the link to your company's website in that stuff that's down here below. See it down there? Right.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah. So folks listening, if you like the show, like it, share it, send a fax to an old person so they know that it exists too. Maybe even a telex to some third world nation. And we thank you so much for enjoying and being part of the FangledCast. Please consider subscribing. See you next time. Brought to you by Fangled Technologies, where we help you convert every person your company touches into a voracious advocate for your brand.